I'll be brief with my introduction so we can get right into the reason why you are here. I'd like to start by thanking our content supporters. Today we have with us Michael Barrera, who is the Director of Business Development with Superior Lawn Care and also serves on our chapter's board of directors and several committees. Michael has been instrumental in helping guide our chapter's vision over the last several years and has worked in multiple aspects of the community association's industry. So he has a really good and solid foundation of the challenges HOA managers and condominium community managers and board leaders are facing on a day-to-day. We also have Jeff Kettler, Sales Director for LMC, and he also serves on our Take a Manager to Lunch Committee. Jeff has been in the industry for 20 years and is a certified arborist, licensed TDA commercial applicator, and is IPM certified. He has worked in all facets of the green industry, from interior and exterior landscaping, irrigation management, lawn care, and tree care services. Chris Mink works in business development for Brightview Landscape Services and serves on our education committee, and you've probably met him at our registration desk if you've been to any one of our luncheons. Moving on, you know, it's no secret there are what seems like thousands of landscaping companies in the Houston area. So to have three competitors come together for the greater good of educating and raising awareness just goes to show how committed our members are to the community associations industry. A lot of prep work goes into putting these webinars together, so we thank our presenters for really putting in the work. The presentation is being recorded and will be emailed later today along with the PowerPoint presentation and CEU certificate for all you CMCAs out there. At the end of the presentation, we will raffle off 6 $50 gift cards. So be sure to stick around to the end, must be present and win. And if your name is called, please acknowledge you're here either by unmuting yourself or submitting your name via the chat. We have 6 to go through, so we'll move on to the next one if we don't hear from you. If you have any questions for the presenters, please use the chat feature and send me a private message, and I'll do my best to ask as many as possible throughout the presentation. At the end, we'll have a Q&A portion. With that being said, I will move it on over to Michael. You're up.
All right, guys. Welcome, everybody. Again, thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to, join in on this webinar where us three landscapers can try to help you guys better understand both sides of the world of landscaping and, being the community manager, the community eyes for your HOAs. My topic is going to be prepare service requests that prevent your landscape from falling victim of overpriced bids. I'm going to go over the bullet points and then kind of go in a little bit more detail after a couple of them. So the first one is for landscape agreements or landscape bids, landscape projects. We just, what would be good is if we have clear and concise scope of the work area for the landscaping project. Always try to include maps with cross streets for project locations. Ensure the contractor bidding has a clear understanding of what is being asked of them. As far as the landscape agreements, whenever we get those requests, as for both of us, we would like to see, sometimes we get the specs from the previous landscaper, just that shows what's everything that y'all have included in your contract. But sometimes it's hard whenever we don't get maps. So we can go out there and we can also, get everything information as in maps, streets, all that information comes, we can get a map for you guys. But if you already have a map, that really helps us because there are certain reserves, certain areas that we can miss that will cause us to be overpriced or underpriced. So we just like to make sure that we get that information from the beginning so that we don't have any issues with getting you an overpriced landscape agreement or an underpriced landscape agreement. Also, I know we're in the COVID situation of scheduling on-site meetings for these landscape projects for pre-bidding and all that good stuff. But again, just understand that all the landscapers, I've been to a couple in the last month, we are guided by the mask and making sure we have the 6 feet apart. So just understand those are very important at this time because sometimes, in previous meetings, we can ask all the questions, we can look at all the maps and everything together as a whole, so that we don't give you an overpriced bid or we come in with the wrong price. And then provide ample time for bidding and reviewing to allow for modifications and to correct any misunderstandings that we have. Sometimes we can fall into the problem where you need a bid right away, but it takes time to get that together. So anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks, is an ample time for us to be able to give you what you need, and then also allows us to ask any questions in case there is a problem with any questions we have on reserves or any project that you may have. Also, again, for everybody, communication is key. In some cases, with the back and forth emails, it kind of is hard to understand. So, just be understandable. I know a lot of people are working from home. So if there can be a phone call, that is greatly appreciated on that. And then also on phasing your project. Sometimes, I'll give an example for a master plan community. You have a project, I'm going to use it because we're going to talk about it today, trees. So if a master plan project has some tree project, you can either, phase it out to do it all at once. Sometimes it's, trip charge is lower. They give you a better deal when all the trees are done at once. And then if it's a bigger project, if you phase it out in 3 to 5 years, sometimes master plan communities can budget money every year. So that way it rotates, every 5 years, you go back to phase 1 on the 5th year and then do that on that nature. But that's the first slide that I have for trying to help us, be understandable of not being able to be underbidded or going overbid. The next topic I have for you guys is save some green with cost reduction tips designed to protect your community investment. We always want to make sure that, our HOAs are our #1 priority. Make sure that, we don't, I'm a sales guy. We want to sell, but we understand we're your client and y'all are #1 priority. So we need to develop a plan for all aspects of landscaping improvements, with time. And then kitty mulch can be fluff turned to preserve the life of the mulch for yearly installations. I would recommend everybody talk to your landscapers, whoever they are, just to make sure that if it's not in your contract, you as it as an addendum to just, because I was in Playscape before, every year with the kitty mulch, you're supposed to put mulch in your playgrounds. So for instance, if your landscaper now turns it, say for instance, your playground needs 50 yards every year for some reason, because of the usage, because of the everybody using the playground area, or it gets washed out with the rain and then it gets compacted. So if the landscaper fluffs it, every year you might need 35 yards of mulch compared to the 50 yard of mulch. So it's just preserving your money and your investment, so that way, you prolong the cost and your budget item is really low on that one. The next subject is monthly irrigation checks. Make sure you're also getting your monthly irrigation reports from your landscapers. It's very important because every month that you get your irrigation check, every month varies. We might have more rain one month, we might not have rain one month. So every month is very crucial on knowing how much water the grass needs, the flowers, the turf. So just make sure that you're getting your monthly irrigation reports on a monthly basis. And then also on landscaping, replace when needed, don't wait. Sometimes HOAs, in your landscaper should help you also knowing what's out there. So say for instance, if you have a plant here and there, it's easier to replace them when you have, thousands of dollars throughout the whole neighborhood that need it. Just an example, HOA gets turned over to another landscaper, then you have thousands of dollars of landscaping that could have been phased out before instead of all that at once. And then also you got to hold your contractors accountable for all warranty issues. Be knowledgeable of your agreement. So by that meaning, say for instance, irrigation, make sure that you understand what's under warranty for your irrigation. Also, some landscapers, you have a warranty on the plant material and on trees. Just so that everybody knows, sometimes we get requests of bidding a tree or some plant material in a neighborhood. We're not able to give you a warranty on that if we are not the landscapers. Just to give you a 411, if something happens with the tree not getting enough water, it dies, and we give you a 6-month warranty, but it could have been because it didn't have enough water. So just understand, whenever you do get requests with your boards, or if there's any board members on here, try to let your landscapers take care of all your improvements and all your requests for major renovations, because since they are your current landscapers, they do know what water is needed, and they are the ones that are responsible for your plant and trees in that area. Notify your landscaper of any nuisances that you might have. If the neighborhood is in an area where it has hog issues over the years, you can work with your landscaper to be able to try to remedy those issues. Also, with plant materials, had a good one this year where, potato vine, the rabbits love them. So if you're like in an area with a lot of new development, the rabbits come out and they have a joy on your seasonal flowers. So just work with your contractor on, with what's in your surrounding areas of your HOA, so that we get you the right material that you need. And I'm gonna go it over to Jeff. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Michael.
Right.
On the rabbits, Michael.
Yeah, watch out for the rabbit.
Watch out for the rabbit.
Good morning, everyone. Jeff Cather with LMC Embark. Thanks again for being on this morning. Obviously, the goal of this presentation is hopefully to give you some education about the industry and how we can benefit your communities, how the landscaping improves your communities, improves your homeowners that are living in your communities. So the first topic I'm going to cover is going to be basically protecting your trees and trying to prevent storm damage, especially with us being in the middle of hurricane season right now, and we deal with this in the Houston area every year. So first thing I want to talk about is tree risk assessment. And a good practice to do is to call an ISA certified arborist to come out and review your property, and they can perform a tree risk assessment for you. They can basically walk the property into different areas for your community, make notes of any trees or branches or any diseases that maybe they see, or funguses that potentially could pose a issue to the property. And I've got some examples of some of those risks that hopefully you can look at for future use, and I've included some pictures. So if you want to go to the next slide, that'd be fine. All right, so this is a visual sign, and I'm sure some of you may have walked through properties before and seen this with either your tree guy or your landscape company. And this is a fungus. It's a fruity body or a conch. There's different types of these funguses that are on trees, but basically that fungus is feeding on decayed wood material that decay in that tree. And so depending on the level of this decay that you see on a tree could depend upon whether or not the arborist will recommend removing that tree. But anytime you do see this, it is a visual sign for you to be able to look at and say, there's some decay going on in this tree. And so the next thing you kind of want to look at is, where is this tree located? Is it an open area in the back 40 of the property where nobody's at? Or is it right next to a playground area where you have kids, people, and pets? And we'll go into that a little bit more, which tells into this slide. Thanks, Jesus. This goes into the proximity of where those trees are located. Is it close to people, places, or pets? And that's one of the things as arborists that we definitely look at when we're evaluating your trees is, especially from a risk assessment. Where is the tree located in proximity to those 3 different people, places, and pets? For instance, you can look at a palm, and this is actually at Slitterbond. And, for you that have experience dealing with palms, especially around your pool areas, you may not think it's a big issue, but if you have a strong storm that comes through and it rips a lot of these fronds off, they become flying projectiles. And so they can land in your pool and cause damage to your pool, which I'm sure y'all have experienced. And they can also fly off and hit people or pets and actually cause injuries. So definitely things that you want to be on the lookout for and not wait. You want to be proactive when it comes to this stuff and visit with your landscape company to make sure that you are taking care of these items. You can go to the next slide, Jesus. Weight reduction is another general practice that's standard in the arbor industry, especially when it comes to storm prevention and trying to assess your risk. If you have trees that have not been trimmed or pruned in the last 10, 15, or 20 years, you get a lot of material. It's called dead wood, and you get a lot of very the canopy becomes very thick and becomes very weighted, and so it becomes very easy for strong winds to come through and really tear through that tree, rip off branches, rip off dead wood, and all that stuff can either fall on cars, it can fall on people, or it can become projectiles as well and hit somebody. And so good practice is definitely at least once a year to have either your professional landscape company or your tree care company that you use to come out and evaluate your trees. And if you have some that haven't been looked at in many years, they can go through and do a weight reduction for you. So the next slide is this. This is one that I know it's big for everybody when we're looking at security, and it also deals with protecting your investments. When you're out on the property and you're looking for branches, and what are they growing up against? Are they growing up against buildings, your full facilities? Are there branches up against windows, security cameras, emergency and security lighting? All that impacts your community and how safe you're keeping your community, your street lights that are on the streets. You've got kids out there. So all of these are things that really a professional tree company or professional landscape company will make note of these items, and it's also good for you to be on the lookout for. So when you're doing your visits to your properties, you can look for these items and make sure that none of these stuff exists, because not only can it cause damage to your properties, but it's also a security issue, and it's safety for the people, the residents that live in your communities. And there we go. This is the potential aftermath. So not all tree issues can be avoided. I wish I could say they could be, but unfortunately they can't. But definitely being proactive and doing a tree risk assessment will hopefully that will catch a lot of the potential issues that could form from storms that do move through. Obviously, this was a very large water oak that I came across last year that split open and fell right after a large wind event went through. We see this all the time. Like I said, sometimes these can be pointed out, and your arborist can find these and say, hey, this tree's in bad condition. It's got some it's got struck by lightning, or it's got some bad splits in the bark from some mechanical damage. It's got some decay potentially. I think we need to address this and go ahead and remove this tree before it becomes an issue. So just some of the things that potentially can happen. Now, from an arbor resources standpoint, this is definitely the isa-arbor.com is a good resource for you to utilize. If you don't have an arborist that you're currently working for, I would definitely recommend going to this website. Most of all of the arborists are listed on this website. You can look by area and by individual. So if there's somebody in particular you're wanting to find, you should be able to find them on this website by looking them up. Okay, so the next topic for today is lawn care 101. And so we talked about your trees, so now let's talk about lawn care 101 and what that means to you in your communities. Can you go to the next slide? So there's three basic essential inputs that we look at when we're considering lawn care. Water, nutrients, and oxygen. And all of those are very critical for your turf to thrive and to be successful, for your property and your property to overall look successful. For all of your landscape partners that you partner up with and your residences, not only is this important for your communities, but it's also important for your homeowners and their yards. But those three things really starts with a good foundation. If you have good water, you got good nutrients, you got good oxygen, generally you're going to have good looking turf. So this will roll into some of the next slides that we have. Water management, proper timing and amount of irrigation is critical. You definitely want to irrigate early in the morning hours when possible. And why do you want to do that? If you water, and it's not always possible, so I understand. Sometimes these communities are 200 acres. and you've got to get through all the zones, and you got a certain amount of time that you need to irrigate in. So sometimes it's not possible. But if you are in a situation where you can have your cycle set to where they can irrigate throughout late morning hours and into their early morning hours, that is the best practice. What happens is that water will sit on the actual leaf blades of the grass as you get through the day. And if you do that over often a period of time, you will start to develop funguses. So it does promote funguses by leaving. If you water early in the morning, the sun has time to dry that water up off the leaf blade material. So it gives a less chance of you having fungal issues on your turf if you do that. You want to water an inch of water per cycle, generally per zone. Typically in the Houston area, we'll see that ranges in from 2 to 3 times a week, but of course that depends on the season. Are we in the winter, are we in early spring, are we in the middle of the summer? It also depends on the turf and plant variety, and then also the amount of sun exposure you have. You have full sun, you have partial sun, how much shade is the turf underneath trees? And then you want to look at your proper irrigation coverage is critical as well. Do you have head-to-head coverage? And what we mean by that is when your sprinkler rotor pops up and it starts watering, and your other rotor that's right next to it is watering, is one water coming out of that one head meeting the other side, and it has a perfect lap over to where you're getting the head-to-head coverage. A lot of times we'll see in the communities where you have these hot spots, and so you'll have a nice green over here, really nice green over here, but there's a little dry looking spot over here. A lot of times it's because those heads are having head-to-head coverage, and a lot of times it's a very easy fix of getting with your landscape professional, and they can come out and send their irrigator, and he can address that maybe by changing out a different nozzle, so you get better coverage in that area. But most of the time it is from not getting a good head-to-head coverage. And then of course only water when water is needed. And I will tell you the best tool to utilize to accomplish this is with the latest smart irrigation controllers that are available within our industry. There's a lot of the manufacturers that have smart controllers out there, so I'm not going to recommend one or the other. I'll let your landscape company do that and help you with that decision process. But conversion is usually very fast, it's simple, it's very inexpensive when you consider the amount of water savings that you get from smart irrigation controllers. So I definitely recommend that. If you haven't done this, I definitely recommend looking into it. It's a wise investment for your property. Okay, then moving on to the next one. And last but not least, oxygen. So the last, definitely very critical. All these are all critical. You can't have one without the other. And just like we need to have oxygen, so do plants. And that goes from your turf, your trees, and your shrubs. Soil compaction is not always discussed, but it leads to many issues in your landscape. Not only does soil compaction hinder the growth of your grass, your turf that you're trying to grow, one of the practices that you can definitely do is you can do core aeration 1 or 2 times a year. And this is, to be honest with you, this is definitely an activity that I've seen over my years that's probably overlooked the most on commercial properties. The benefits really are hard to see. It's a long-term benefit, so most people want to see, if I do this in a week or 3 weeks, am I going to see the results right away from doing this? And it's something that you don't see results that fast from. It's something that you just have to know that when you do it, you're doing the right thing for the property. And long-term, that is the right thing that's going to keep your property and your grass looking healthy. The same thing is for your trees or your shrubs. There's a tool at the bottom of the picture that's called an air spade. And so if you have a property where you have some trees that are struggling, maybe you've had a property that was part of the flooding, one of the flooding events that we had, and you had a lot of water that your trees were sitting in, that can compact the soil around the trees. This instrument will come in and actually break up the soil around the base of the trees and will allow oxygen to those trees. And kind of one of a misnomer about trees, a lot of people think in most cases your trees decline from lack of water. And that is true, but I will tell you from my experience and all the training that I've gone through, oxygen is probably just as important, if not as more important than water, especially when it comes to trees. That's why your root systems, 90% of your root systems fall within the first 6 to 18 inches of the soil. They have to have oxygen to survive. So, okay, I think that covers that. And then nutrients. Well-balanced fertilizer. There's all different type of fertilizers available on the market. And definitely your professional landscape company or your turf care company that you're utilizing can make recommendations on the different nutrients. You've got slow release fertilizers, which have an extended release of the nitrogen over a longer period of time so that you see a greener window from that fertilization. And you do have organic fertilizers. You have a large variety of organic fertilizers. So it just depends on what your community is trying to accomplish. And definitely your professional landscape management company can make recommendations on whether they think you should use organic fertilizer or if they should use some, slow release fertilizer, more of a traditional fertilizer. And then with tree care, you have deep root fertilization. Deep root fertilization also is another way of targeting specifically to the root zone of those trees for fertilizing your trees. And then the last thing I can tell you is when in doubt, have your turf care professional, your landscape company take soil samples, and they can do an analysis and they can see if there's something going wrong with your property with the soil, whether you have high pH and we need to do some sulfur applications to bring the pH down, which 8% of the time that's going to be the case in our Houston soils, that the pH is going to be high. So that kind of rounds that out. Those three products are essential elements that we need to be successful with our turf care. And so then I've got a list of resources for you there that you can utilize. So feel free to use those websites for a lot of valuable information for you to find. And that's it. And we'll turn it over to Chris. I appreciate your time this morning.
Thanks, Jeff. Chris, you there?
All right, thanks, Jeff. Yeah, I'm here. Can y'all hear me? Sorry, I've had some technical difficulties, but I'm on for now. All right, guys, like I said, I want to just be with everyone here, and Jesus is right. It's nice to have what are looked as competitors coming together to help for a greater good for all of our causes. And thanks, everyone, for being on here, and hope everyone's doing well. So I got two topics today. The first one's going to be implementing a consistent landscape strategy for HOA board members and community managers. The first thing I'm going to talk about is a 30, 60, 90-day checklist. Now, this is typically done whenever a new vendor comes in to take over the site, just to kind of get a plan in place and visual for yourself and the manager that will be able to be presented to the board members to see these are the things that we're going to hit. These are the measurables we're going to take care of. But even if you're in the middle of a contract now with a vendor you've been with, you've not done one of these, it's a nice way to sometimes get it set back on the right path if there's been some struggles or here. But there should be, like I said, a base structure there that should be completed prior. If you have a 30, 60, 90-day checklist as a vendor, then as a landscape professional, then you're going to have a base structure of just some measurables, some irrigation inspections, complete walks of the site, mapping, and kind of stuff like that. It's going to be built in. But then after that is when it's going to be tailored to each community. So an initial walk with the community manager and the vendor, the landscape professional, is best. That way that we can get, because we don't always know. I mean, we have always a different parts of it. We have three vendors on here now. Sorry, we have three vendors on here now, and we all have our different processes to get things done. We all have a set of standards and quality as well, but sometimes those differ from community and board members to board member, just because of everyone has a different opinion of what they want to prioritize, whether it's the clubhouse, the playground area, the pool area, front entrances, whatever that is, that gives us a much better understanding and expectations of what frustrations the board has had in the past if the new vendor is coming on, or the expectations that they want to use and utilize going forward. Again, it just begins to form a smooth and straight line of communication between the community manager and the vendor, us as landscape professionals, because as we all know, that is absolutely imperative. We're on the same page. We're partners. We're in this together and striving for the best. Next slide. The second part of this to get a consistent strategy is having a community quality walks. I know we all in some way have a different acronym for a QI, QA, QSA, quality walk, whatever that is. To kind of to follow that after we set that 30, 60, 90 out, to follow those to make sure all those measurables are being hit. So these, I believe, and I know it's hard at all times to get everybody together, but when they're performed together with a community manager and the vendor, it just builds a strong and long-lasting partnership and delivers consistent quality. It's hard. It's easy to have a plan yourself as a professional and tell a community manager, the community manager have a plan from the board and tell the landscape professional. When you all come together, when we come together on this, and both buy into exactly what we're doing, concession here, concession there, it just makes it easier to follow, and everyone's more in tune with it and more driven for a result if we're all part of the creation of the plan. And these quick quality walks, they just identify landscape misses, if there was any tasks that not complete, any areas that are missed, and then also damages caused by an outside source. I know vehicles drive on medians, hit monument signs all the time. There's vandalism on gazebos and playgrounds, and these are just things to get on in a nice form in one clear area per month or per quarter or every other month, however you want to set these up. And it's something, like I said, that can be easily shared between the partnership that we have as a landscape professional vendor and a community manager with the HOA board, since they're not going to be the ones that are on the walks typically. So they see clearly what's going on and what we're doing. These can also be used to locate areas that need improvement, landscaping upgrades, or irrigation changes. So again, it's something easy to put together throughout the year of what we're seeing. We want to work on, these cul-de-sacs. We need to spruce those up. We need to change the entrance to the pool area. We may need to reduce or add more irrigation to ensure that the turf is green and getting water properly and head-to-head coverage, as Jeff was talking about. So again, just an easy way to put everything together as our partnership to put in front of the board so they can see it in a clear, concise manner. I'm gonna move my screens here. All right, and then the last part of this is the annual landscape evaluation and plan. I believe that this will be done before the annual budgeting. It allows options to be decided on between the HOA board, the community manager, and the vendor. They can be included in the following year budget. And all of these kind of build on itself. So if you're doing these quality walks and you're taking notes down and getting proposals of extra work that needs to be done, we all know that that's not all budgeted every single year. So this is a clear plan and a clear way that we can put these out here. These are the 10 proposals that we discussed this year. These are the 5 that we did. These are the other 5 that I know you and as the board member and the community manager would like to see done. So let's put these out here and see how we can budget these out throughout the year and set them up per quarter, or however that is. Like I said, then during this evaluation, the quality site walk should be gathered, and then so that you can review all the extra work discussed during the year that was not complete, plan that out for the following year, or even these big contracts on these big master plan communities, like Michael was saying, we can plan this out for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years to have expectations going forward of what needs to be done. It also helps with selecting the annual couple together and have an annual evaluation. Let's go ahead and set this for the year. Let's pick, let's choose, let's make sure we're all on the same page so it doesn't come back last minute after colors in the ground, which we all know this happens sometimes, and a board member or manager or something, or some miscommunication, it was completely off from where we started. And some of these extra work items could include, like I said, annual tree trimming, irrigation add-ins or changes, or just new bed upgrades or revisions. Next slide, please. The next part I'm going to talk about is conserving water through xeriscaping and native plant use. Xeriscaping, the definition of xeriscaping is a practice of designing landscapings to reduce or eliminate the need for irrigation. There are numerous pros. Obviously you're saving money with irrigation, you're conserving resources with water there. I know in some areas, I don't think we've hit that place yet, but in Austin and San Antonio, it's a big deal here in Texas now. And you're also saving money on, most of these will have rock bases and instead of mulch, so you're not replenishing that every single year. And so it's good for the environment. The cons, as we saw that Jesus shared from all your all's questions, is it looks like a desert. So I included a picture there to kind of just get that desert look that you're talking about. And that is a con. We have a very lush, climate here that you are capable of growing things. It's just picking the right plants to use in those areas, because it is, as we know, is hot and humid. So it technically does not have to look like that, a full xeriscape, to be able to save money on irrigation and conserve resources. So next slide, please. And I'm going to talk about the native plant portion. This can be a very good alternative to going full xeriscape. There's an extensive list of native and adapted plants that's for our region in Texas. I think it's about 150 that I've seen that are on there. Most of you currently are utilizing some of these in communities landscaping, you really just don't know it. So this can be a mixture of, on the next slide, there'll be some pictures of some plants that are just out there, but you don't have to go full agave and yucca and cacti, you can mix in some canna lilies and some things like that. Crepe myrtles are on the adapted list. I mean, these are things that we utilize every single day. We just don't realize that we're doing it for a heat and a drought tolerance. And that's the second point of this. The benefits of using these plants will also save money. They're classified mostly as heat resistant and drought tolerant. Now, that doesn't mean they are drought resistant. There's a difference in tolerant resistant, but as we know with lantana and dinella and roses, these things can take hotter temperatures, less rainfall, and less irrigation and still thrive. And sometimes they thrive even better in these situations. And then with the beauty and versatility of these plants, you're able to mix them in with some type of xeriscaping and have a way to conserve water and also have an eye-catching landscaping. I mean, if you can go to a rock base and put some boulders in there, but then you can put, nice lantana or canna lilies, and you can go to the next slide. We can see some of these, some 5 or 6 I put on there. I think it's just 5 of them. So again, I'm sure everybody here has seen or utilized all of these. These are pretty basic. I mean, vitex trees, crepe myrtles, maiden grass, all of these are on the native and adapted list. Oak leaf hydrangeas, maybe have a little filtered sun with those, but still, you can conserve resources, water less. And then the bed on the bottom, that is utilizing, Esperanza and firecracker and some sage and stuff like that, and lantana. So those are all native and adapted plants that use less water and don't require that much even in the heat of the summer. But that bed, to me at least, looks way more pretty and eye-catching than the cactus desert look that I know is the con of the full-time xeriscaping. So again, there's ways to do this and this native plant thing. And as we all know, we plant plants sometimes and they just don't work because we try to go on a limb, and we live in a tough climate, and you got to have plants that are capable of performing in that climate. And like I said, there's a full list out there, and it's a nice way to save money and save water. So that's all I have on those. That right there. Thank you again for having us, and appreciate the time.
Sure. Thanks, Chris, and thanks, Michael and Jeff. I'm going to get to some questions we have. And so this first one will go to you, Jeff. What are some environmentally friendly tree care chemicals?
Environmentally friendly tree care chemicals. Well, I guess I'll start with saying that anything organic, anything that is labeled organic that you can get from your local garden center or from your professional landscaper is going to be environmentally friendly. Any type of other herbicide or pesticide, you're applying that around any type of plant material, whether it's trees, shrubs, there's going to be risk with all of those. And that's why it's so important that you definitely make sure that you go with somebody that you feel comfortable, that you can trust and is qualified to do that application properly so you don't damage any trees and shrubs. So I don't know if that answers it totally, but it definitely gives you, I think, a little bit of direction. That's definitely something that I would say have a one-on-one visit with your landscaper about. Definitely organics is probably going to be the safest bet for you to go if that's a concern that you have with your plant material.
Okay. Follow-up question to that. What are the organic programs available? You know of any, I guess, is there a landscape program?
Yeah, there's a lot of different organic programs that are available. There's several different companies. There's one here locally in town that specializes in organics and does a really good job. But really all of the manufacturers and all of the distributors here locally have their own lines of organic products. When it goes to organic fertilizers, there's even organic weed control methods and different processes that you can do to try to control weeds organically. Some work better than others. And so what I would say is that, that's a really tough area within our industry that we deal with a lot. Sometimes there's things that work organically, especially fertilizers, that work better than maybe if we're trying to do weed control or something. And so really it's something that I would get with your local landscape company that you're using with, or your turf care professional. And I would have a meeting and try to find out, we need to know, what are you trying to accomplish with your community? What's the main goal for that? And then we can recommend some different type of processes or products. But just to tell you that there's one type of program, there's a lot of different type of programs available, and it's just depending on what you're trying to accomplish.
Okay. Next is, here we have a good question here. Ideas to keep good turf healthy on heavily used soccer fields. There's another question that kind of mirrors that. Essentially says, when do you know your grass is too gone to be saved? And
Yeah.
Chris, I'll hand this over to Chris.
I'm sorry, you cut out. When do you know your grass is too gone to be safe? Is that what you said?
Right, and this is
Water
one of
uses?
the other question that mirrors that is basically heavily used soccer fields, and what can you do to prevent bare spots and from overuse?
Well, I know in our industry, it's hard. I mean, obviously the right turf, the right sport turf, something that is capable of taking the traffic, not just a normal common, you got to have the high performance of that. And, when you're dealing with compaction, your best combat to that is being able to open up the soil. I mean, like Jeff Slide said, you got to get air in there. I mean, you got to poke holes in that stuff. You got to poke holes in that stuff consistently, and it looks like a lot of damage and you're causing problems, but unless you're breaking through that hard thatch layer, that hard layer compaction, water just runs off and none of it's overtaken. And then you start getting into the hydrophobic situation where the molecular structure of the dirt's not even taking the water in, it's just running past it. So hard compaction, I would say poking holes in it, pulling cores, some sort of aerification or aeration process. If you pull big ones, you can put some kiln dried sand in, something real fine to fill that back in, but at least still allow root structure and soils and rhizomes to move and grow and fill those areas in. And then obviously fertilizer, lots of fertilizer, whether it be organic or not organic, but fertilizer.
There you go. Now we know. Michael, I'm going to ask you this question. How are landscape crews coping with masks in the summer heat? And I guess along those lines, what are some safety measures landscaping companies are taking to ensure the safety, not just their employees, but the communities they work in?
Yeah, so I guess what you could do is, we try to tell them to put their mask on, and then we usually have those like the face shields and stuff, but they work alone on separately. So I guess whenever they need a little breathing break, sometimes they pull the ding deck and I'm trying to think, there's so many names for them, but the little, like a bandana to, they're all coping and they all are mandatory to wear their mask, but some of them, because they're not so close to each other because the edger is on the other side of the community or the blower. So that's good. But, whenever they get close in proximity, we are obeying by the 6-foot rule, and then we have our mask on. But I understand, like yesterday, I was in a meeting and we all had our mask on, and then once we all needed a breath, we all separated like 10 feet apart and got some breath. It's not nice.
It's tough. That is really tough. And it's hot out there, that's for sure. Jeff, this question says, we flooded badly. If we were having tree issues, could it still be caused by the standing water 3 years ago?
Absolutely. Yeah. Once you get compaction and you don't do anything to address that compaction doesn't go away. It's going to be there until something's done about it. So if you do have an area that was flooded, then I would definitely have somebody come out and look at it, and they can see if they think it's from the compaction, and more likely it might be. And they can look at some of the surrounding areas. That's one of the things that you can look at too, is what are the streets or the trees look like down the road, maybe where it didn't flood. Are those trees still doing well? And then as you move down the road to where you flooded, the trees are suffering, that could be a visual sign that, well, it probably was from the compaction, from the flood. And then they can go in with an air-spade tool and break up the soil and hopefully maybe do some fertilization as well for those trees and try to get them healthier and address that.
One more tree question for you. It's the last one. It says, some of our large tree roots are exposed and very long, leading towards buildings. What would you suggest? Trim the roots and block them from hitting the building? Would that be unhealthy to a tree?
Yeah, so that's a general issue, challenge that everybody has. It's varying different from one homeowner to another commercial property. Sometimes the tree roots want to be on top, sometimes they want to be just under the ground. So, but I would recommend, it's okay to root prune. The process is called root prune. And so if you have a couple of select roots that are maybe in the way of something that you don't want them to be, maybe it's a trip and fall hazard on a playground, you can go in and selectively remove those roots without harming that tree. as long as you're not removing too many of those roots at one time, it might cause too much stress for that tree. So once again, the best thing to do is get with your landscape company or your tree care company, have them come out and take a look at that. And they may be able to do a select removal of just those couple of roots with no problem, with no stress to the trees, and that tree will be just fine. But if it's if it's surrounding 70 to 80% of the tree that you want to root prune, then the recommendation could be, well, let's do this in phases so we don't stress this tree too much. It doesn't have any issues, so it's able to redevelop new roots while we root prune these out.
Awesome. Yeah, a lot of questions around trees. You know, they add so much character and value to a property. So it's interesting to hear all these questions come through. That's what we have through the chat. Now, if anybody has any question they want to ask, feel free to unmute yourselves, and we'll wait 30 seconds and see if there's a question might come in through your phone or through the voice feature.
Hey, Suze, this is Troy Loki.
Hello.
Hi. I'm over here in Horseshoe Bay outside of Austin. And so it's been a pleasure to listen to y'all. We do have a lot of the similar issues. One of the things I keep running into is the difference between landscaping and gardening. Because we have lawn care maintenance people that comes through.
You're cutting out, right?
I can,
Do one of you guys want to answer that one?
I kind of know what I think she's asking. I'll take that if nobody else wants to take it.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, so I can see Michael smiling. This is an issue in our industry or challenge. This is a challenge that we deal with. And if this answers her question, so the difference between gardening and basically landscaping, from what we do, we provide a service typically once or twice a week. So we're there on that property to provide a certain service that your residents have paid for, and then we're off that property. So we're not there. A gardener typically is there daily, or they're more frequently, and they're there to address a lot of different issues in a very quick, timely manner because they're there all the time. So we see this issue a lot, especially with certain townhome communities, where maybe we as a landscape professional company have to take care of the front and the backyards, and you have maybe 200 homeowners, and they want to see their property weed-free and their beds weed-free 7 days a week. That's more of a gardening type situation where you have somebody who's dedicated specifically on a daily type basis or a more frequent basis, and they're there to address all those needs every day or every other day. Whereas a landscaping company, we're there for that service period. So we're hired to come in, to go through, trim the shrubs, clean the beds, mow the grass, do the edging, and so that it looks nice when we leave. But the next time around, it's not until maybe 6 days later. And so we get into those issues of what's the gardener, what's the landscaper, and we have to educate. And so hopefully that answers your question. That's the main difference, really, is the amount of time. Now, you could pay us to be out there every single day of the week, and we could act like a gardener, but you might not want to pay that.
Well said, Jeff. Well said.
Is that good, guys? Is that pretty
I
good?
like it. I like it.
There you go.
Like it?
Well, we'll
Yeah.
get to one more question, and then we will, Ray, I think you might have missed some of that.
Yeah, I did, because I got kicked out somehow. I got unconnected, so.
Well, we'll stick around. I think we're going to answer one more question, and we're going to do the gift cards. And then if the presenters are okay, maybe we can stick around after the presentation has officially ended and answer a few more questions. You guys okay with that?
Yes.
Sure, absolutely.
Cool. Chris, here's a question for you. If replanting an entire bed full of new bushes, is planting an entire bed full of new bushes and plants okay for fall planting? No annuals, plants like hollies, crepe myrtles, bushes, etc.
Is it fine to plant in the fall for a bed full of bushes? Is that what
Right.
you're saying? Just basic? Yep. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, anybody that's asking me in June or July to do a large install, my first question is, can you wait till September? Days get a little shorter. The sun's not out as much. The humidity's still there, but humidity is not a bad thing if the sun temperature is not there. So the days start getting shorter. So September is great. I agree. And one thing I would go ahead and say, I know this might not be on the topic, but I tell this to anybody I'll walk with, and anybody in here I'm sure has heard this from me. If someone comes to you and says, I have 160 shrubs, I need to redo this whole bed, please cut that thing in half and put some nice turf out there and just do 40 shrubs. It's going to save you so much money over the long run. The cost per square foot difference is amazing. And turf is beautiful when it's green. So just listen to what Jeff said about the turf and what Michael said about getting the right plan in place and then put it all together and do less shrubs, more turf, and save some money. But yeah, the fall's a good time of year.
We'll sneak this last one in, Michael. A question from Michael. What is the industry standard for cleaning beds? Weekly, bi-weekly, monthly? Do you have any kind of any insight on that?
No, the only thing, like Jeff said, I mean, there is a difference. We go out once a week to the community. So we might be out there, it takes care of that weed. The next day or 2 days, boom, there goes a new one. It's just something that we battle in the landscaping industry, and I've learned it, being new to the industry. Always, there is something where we leave the property, it's immaculate. 2 days later, there's weeds going through the mulch. I mean, it's something that we just battle. We take care of after every visit. Now, if we're the next day after the visit and you see a full bed of weeds, then we do have an issue, you know what I mean? But weeds are the fastest growing thing. It just happens, sometimes in 48 hours. Right, guys?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So I'll tell you the way my dad used to handle it. He would just spray diesel on it. So that was
Hey,
back in
whatever
the day.
works, man.
That's that environmentally friendly herbicide there.
Yeah. All righty. Well, look, I want to be cognizant of everyone's time. Appreciate everyone. I randomized names. So I pulled 12. Hopefully at least 6 of you are here. So if you are, please, again, speak up or confirm in some way. And then after we're done with that, presenter will stick around and, they'll answer a few more questions from you. But I want to officially, get it done within the hour for those of you who need to go. So the first is Maria Leal with Real Manage.
Yay, I'm here.
Hey.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
You're $50 richer.
Woohoo!
Number 2 on the list, Sylvia Aguirre with the Galvestonian. Second, Sylvia Aguirre, are you here? All righty. Going once, going twice. All said and done. All right, moving on. Melissa Barna with Bear Creek.
I'm here.
There you are, Melissa Barna. Thank you and congratulations. You're one of the recipients of the $50.
Sweet.
Yeah, we'll coordinate all of this after the fact with our presenters. Next is Janet Hampton, of PMG Houston. Are you on the call, Janet? Janet Hampton, going once, going twice. All right, moving on. Roger Olson, Spring Trails. Roger on the call? I thought I saw him on earlier. No Roger. All righty. Fran Steele. And I don't have a name and organization. Fran, are you on the call?
First Colony.
First Colony. There you are, Fran.
First Colony.
All righty. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Next up, let's see. That's 1, 2, 3. We got 3 more to go. Lisa Grimes, Pegasus Property. Lisa Grimes, are you on the call? All righty. Better chances for you guys. Worth Ross. Mark, are you on the call? He was on our call yesterday or 2 days ago with the managers. All right, moving on. Tracy Henry with PM. I don't quite know what that name is. Tracy
Henry with KPM Management.
KPM Management, that's what it was. I can't read my own handwriting. KPM Management. Tracy, congratulations. We'll coordinate that with you.
Thank you.
So that's 4. We've got 2 more. Francesca Petri. Francesca, are you on the call? I know you signed on earlier. I think she might have left. Okay. Kathy Winfield, AVR Management.
I'm here. Thank you.
Hey, Kathy. Good to hear
Hi.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Congrats. All right. And Ray Loki.
Oh, hi.
I know you're here. You didn't get kicked off this time.
No.
All righty. So that's a 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's it. All righty. Well, I appreciate it. You know, again, this takes a lot of work, and we certainly appreciate our presenters taking the time to put the information together. Like I said, this information will be sent out via email later today, along with the recording and the CEU certificate for you CMCAs out there. Be sure to check our website, caihouston.org, for additional resources and information. On August 26th, we have a Reserves 101 presentation. That'll be virtual as well, and so we hope you can attend. We're also working on a legal seminar and should have the agenda out here in the next 2 to 3 weeks, hopefully. So be sure to check that out too. With that being said, I'm going to, if you need to log off, we'll officially cut it off now. It's 11:28, 2 minutes early. And then the presenters are going to stick around. So thanks, everyone.